Talking about the strategies for 2023, right? So how are we gonna take on 2023 as investors? What is it that we need to do today, right? How can we prepare today for 2023? So for that, we need to currently understand where we are today in 2022 and how we can position ourselves for success in 2023. Okay, so let's get started. How many of you would like to be more successful in the near future than you've been in the past? All of us, right? How many of you would like to have more joy and happiness in your life than you've had in the past? All of us. And how many of you would like to make more money? Of course, all of us, right? So we're gonna make that happen for all of us in 2023. Okay, so my goal today is to blow your mind, right? So I'm gonna share three things. So we're gonna be talking about the strategies for 2023. Uh, we are going to give you the ultimate freedom blueprint for 2023 strategy. And finally, we're going to be talking about the year-end review for the deal makers. Actually, that's going to go in the middle after we talked about the 2022 current situation. Okay, so how do we strategize? Let's talk about the first thing. How do we strategize for 2023? So for that to happen, we need to understand the current 2022 year-end review in real estate, okay? So we're gonna quickly summarize what's happening. As you all know, right? Interest rates are through the roof, hovering the 7%. Consumption is down. We're talking about consumer consumption. Renters, right? People who cannot afford to buy, they're moving into rentals, has gone up 35%. Homeowners has gone down 35 to 65%. Inflation is still very high. It used to hit 8.5, so it's down to 7.25. And we're going to be talking about the relationship between interest rates, inflation, and how that's playing a role in real estate. Next, real estate prices are correcting themselves, they're adjusting, they're going down. And finally, our real estate listings are still going up. Okay, so this is one of the most concerning ones, unemployment, right? Right now, it's at about 3.7%, but it's expected to go up next year by 1.2 million jobs lost. So we're going to go into details and explain what has happened in 22 and what are the consequences for 2023 and how we can prepare for them. Okay, so let's talk about the top 5 issues facing real estate in 2023. Okay, so let's understand inflation versus interest rates. Okay, so pretty much they go hand in hand. Okay, inflation, it's a government's mandate to keep it at 2%. So what's inflation? Inflation is the increase in cost of goods and services. So fuel, food, anything that we utilize on a daily basis continues to go up, but the government's target is at 2%, okay? And the government has an extremely powerful weapon to control inflation, and that's the interest rate. So it's the interest rate that is given to banks to lend out money. So pretty much it makes money more affordable to people through banks. Okay, so now why do they go hand in hand? Because when inflation goes up, interest rates are going to follow. Okay, they're always chasing each other. And the reason why now the Fed has increased the interest rates 6 times in 2022 is to bring down inflation. Okay. Now this is the problem with the interest rates now being so high. The pandemic started in March 2020. Okay, almost 2 years ago. In 2021 March, so a year after the pandemic hit, inflation was still at 2%. So the government was doing amazing. But guess what? As of March last year, 2021 till March 2022, that's when the inflation started to go up. But guess what? The interest rates were still low. So the government said, well, inflation is supposed to be transitory, but it was not. It kept going up. So now the Fed realized in 2020, in March 2022, it's about time for us to take action and start increasing the rate, the interest rate, to control inflation. So this is what happened. Starting in March, they did 6 very rapid interest rate increases to control inflation. So they brought inflation from 8.5 down to 7%, but it's still too high. So what happens when the Fed increased the interest rate? What happened was that it also affected the mortgage rates. Okay, mortgage rates have gone up through the roof. They're hovering the sevens. So what happens when the rates go up? How does that affect real estate affordability, right? So buyers now cannot afford to buy the same house today that they used to a year ago, because now their mortgage payment has gone up by $700-800, whereas last year they could afford the same property for $600 less. So they cannot afford to buy the same home. So what's happening is that now people who cannot afford to buy real estate are jumping into rentals. So is it clear the relationship between the inflation and interest rates? So now I'm going to show you in the next slide. This is one of my favorite slides, and we're going to spend a few minutes on this one because this is very critical for all of you to understand. And we're going to talk about how this is going to impact real estate investors. So I'm going to show you every 10 years, 20 right here. So you're going to see a spike right here, 2010, 2000. So there's typically a spike increase in inflation, and then the inflation is followed by a recession, okay? So we are officially hitting a recession in the United States. So what that means is that you have, right now is the worst purchasing conditions for retail buyers, because you have a low inventory supply. Okay, there are not enough houses for sale. You have high interest rates. So for retail buyers, it's really tough. However, for investors, it's going to be really, really amazing, because guess what? We're going to find more motivated sellers willing to negotiate, take a lower price. So that is really, really good for real estate investors, okay, like us. So now what's going to happen now with the rates being so high up? That's affecting property prices, right? So supply and demand. When you have less buyers, then it's going to force sellers to drop the price, right? They're going to be motivated. They want to sell their inventory. Think about this, like even this applies to cars. Now the rates are higher. People cannot afford to buy the same car as they used to a year ago. So now dealerships are forced to drop the car prices to be able to move the inventory. The same thing applies to real estate. But for us investors, it's going to be really good, because we're going to be able to buy and find better deals. We're going to find less competition as far as investors. So for us, we're so much looking forward to 2023. Okay, so this is the first challenge that we're facing. Now, for those of us who are refinancing or getting new loans, obviously we're going to be paying higher interest rate, which means a lot of pressure on the cash flow. Okay, so we're going to talk about cash flow in just a second. What's the second issue that we're currently facing is the price of money, right? The cost to build, the cost to own, the cost to buy. So new construction is way behind. Why? Because it's the highest in the last decade as far as expenses to build, labor and material. And we see that, right, on rehabs. Before the pandemic, we used to rehab a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for 35, 40,000. Now we're hitting 55, 60,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So what does that mean, right? The cost of money. So that means that you really need to be careful as to selecting the deals, right? You need to stick to the numbers. So we're going to talk about how to best analyze certain properties and what strategies you need to apply for 2023. But the cost of money, it's a big challenge for holding expenses, right? That is why flips today are extremely challenging because of the holding expense. Market time, properties are sitting longer in the market because you have a smaller pool of buyers. Okay, the third issue is corporate profit and losses. Okay, so what happens with inflation? So inflation, the cost of goods and services go up. So what happens to the profits of corporations? What do you think? They're going to go down. So how do companies and big companies react to profit losses? They're going to job losses. So that's one of the biggest problems. And in fact, we're seeing that today with big corporations like Amazon, Twitter, they're laying off. So today unemployment is at 3.7, but by next year it's expected to go up to 4.4%. So that's an additional 1.2 million people. Okay. Now, what's going to happen with this when you have unemployment? That's a big deal, right? Because then people for sure won't be able to afford to buy a property. Okay, so they're going to go into the rental market. Okay, so that's one thing, but they still need to find a place to live. Okay, so uh, next, let me show you this. Like, for instance, Amazon has already announced a 10,000 layoff. Okay, that is, and many large companies are exactly doing the same. So look at this effects of unemployment on the economy. People are going to spend less, which ultimately contributes to less contribution to the economy in relation to services of goods and services. So what that means is that now people are going to save less money. Okay, they're going to tap into their savings. They're going to look for ways to save money if they cannot afford to now buy properties or stay where they are. So unemployment is one of the biggest challenges. Personal savings, that's a reflection of high interest rates and inflation, that now people are saving less, they're depleting their savings, they're tapping into their savings, okay? Uh, so now, what are the tips now based on what we just talked about? In this market and what we need to do for 2023. Okay, so this is going to be critical for all of us based on the current market situation. Number one, you've got to define your strategy. So we stress, don't flip. Right now it's very, very challenging. Okay. Number two, think long term. That's going to be critical. Rentals. We highlighted house hack, which means that you typically buy a multi-unit, 2 to 3 flat, live in one and rent out the other one. So pretty much you are rent free. The tenants are paying for your mortgage, and then you're building equity. Okay, you can do the maintenance, the rehab while you are in the property. So house hack is just a great way for you to accumulate rentals and build equity. Okay. Now, as far as long term, why do you need to think long term? Because just think about this. What's the average retirement dollar amount in a pension plan? For a US citizen, it's about 200, 250,000. Okay. If you were to hold just one property for 30 years, that property will be worth at least in the next 10 to 15 years, at least that amount, 200,000, 250,000. Okay. So owning real estate, it's just the fastest and quickest way for wealth accumulation. Okay. And the cool thing about real estate is that you can always tap into the equity and you don't get to pay for it. The rent paid by the tenant is going to pay for that extra equity pulled out of the property. Okay, so think always long term. So in real estate, you have three strategies. You have wholesale, buy and hold, and fix and flip. So right now, we're putting a complete stop on all flips, we're focusing on long-term thinking like rentals and also wholesaling. Wholesaling is going to be one of, or if not the most important exit strategies in 2023. And I'm going to show you why. Um, so here we're going to flip like 9 properties. In 2023, we ended up only selling 3 because we were hitting the midst of the rate increases, right? So now the buyer pool just disappeared. So I'll show you those details. The second tip for 2023, negotiate, okay? You're gonna find more motivated sellers willing to take a cut, a price reduction on their properties. Also, network, learn, see how you can add value to others. So, coming to events like these, because you're in the people's business. We've done so much business. I'm going to show you what we've done in 2023. By working together as a group. And that's what real estate is all about, right? You're in the people's business. Is who you work with, is networking that is going to get you to the next level. So it's going to be super, super important for you to network, negotiate moving forward. And then number 3, cash is king, right? For 2023. So wholesaling is one of the best strategies for 2023, along with rentals. Obviously, for rentals, the biggest challenge is going to be funding, right? Why? Because lenders don't want to lend to unexperienced or newbies, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen. Lenders want to give money to people who don't actually need money, right? So that's one of the biggest challenge that we've seen in 2022 with investors, but we have a solution for it. Okay, so that's the cool part about this. We have a solution for all these challenges that we were able to apply this year. So year-end review for the deal makers. So we created a group called the deal makers exactly a year ago. So what does this mean? What's the deal makers? Many of you are deal makers. What we've done is we wanted to be transaction driven, do deals. Most importantly, do partnerships. Because it's really difficult for somebody to have all the puzzles of the pieces of the puzzle to be successful. You need time, experience, money, reserves, um, and it's just not feasible. I think I only know one investor in the group who's got all the pieces. Rich Joseph. He's got money, reserves, time, experience. He's a broker, but yeah, he's got all the pieces. Hardly anybody has all the pieces. So that is why when you network, when you do partnerships, is where the power of real estate comes. So that is why we created the deal makers. So track records. So we created this concept of track records. So 33 deal makers got track records from 4 properties. So what does this mean? Today or in 2023 was really difficult to do deals. Why? Because up until June, people were paying crazy cash prices for properties. They were going over and beyond asking prices, as you could remember, up until June 2022, right? So it was really difficult to get really good deals because people who didn't understand the numbers were paying crazy dollars. So, but for some of us who were lucky and had the connections and resources, we were able to find amazing deals still. In 2022, we were able to get at least 100 off-market properties on the contract. Okay, we didn't buy them all, but we did have 100, at least 100. We had a batch of 82 on the contract and another one for 22 and another one for 11 properties on the contract, all off market, okay? From which we were able to pick and choose and the best ones, okay? So now track record came about as a result of new investors not given loans by lenders. And bluntly, some lenders have told me, Hugo, please don't refer us people without experience or newbies. We don't want to do business with them because they're too big of a liability. They're too risky. So I was not happy about that, right? Because we're trying to level the playing field of new investors to be able to do deals like the pros do. So we came up with the concept of the track record. So what does that mean? Let me give an example. Like for instance, this property in Lansing, we bought this property, creating a new entity. So this is the address in Lansing, and we created Dealmakers Schultz. So we utilize the street name and create an LLC. And in that LLC, we add a lot of people, right? So what does that mean? When we bought this property, first of all, we're backing up the funding, right? So the lender know they have our track record, right, of what we've done in real estate. So they're going to give us the loan, but the loan is going to be given to this entity. And guess what? Everyone in this list may not have the experience or may not be given the loan. However, if they're part of the entity, guess what? You know, they're going to get track records. What that means is when you refinance or when you sell the property, then it's going to count as a deal or a track record under their belt. So you need to have at least 3 to 5 properties under your belt so that you and us are identical in the eyes of the lenders. So it is that important for you guys to do deals. In the last, I mean, the bank goes back as far as 24 months. So they want to know your track record in the last 24 months. So the more properties you do, the better off you're going to be. These we're going to be closing next week. Okay, so this is a condo. Again, we have a lot of people added into this entity so that when the property gets sold, then boom, they can count that as a track record. So what we do is we are going to create operating agreement with people's name, and then we give them ownership into the property. So when it's sold, boom, it counts as a track record in the eyes of the lender. Okay, so this is another one in Dalton. So again, we keep the same street name for this entity. Once the property is sold, then we can dissolve the entity. We no longer need the entity, right? So it was just for the purpose of giving you guys a track record. Okay, so then even if you're a newbie, you can go to the bank and say, yeah, I've done 3 deals in the last year, even though that you were not perhaps actively involved in the transaction, then you got track record. Does that make sense? Do you guys see the importance of these? It's huge. It's huge because otherwise, how can a newbie have a track record? It's like, who came first? We have some chairs in the front. Who came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So how can lenders expect newbies to have experience if they don't want to give them loans? So that's how we were able to figure this out. Let me tell you, the only drawback that we found out by doing this is that when we bought the property under the deal makers, if we have a buyer that is going to use FHA or VA loan, there's a 90-day seasoning period. So we couldn't sell the property before that seasoning period of 90 days. That was the only thing that we ran into when selling these properties. We needed to hold the property for at least 3 months, which let me tell you, when you go to some lenders like Renovo, they have a 90-day seasoning period. From the day you buy the property to the time you refinance the property, they want to see a 90-day seasoning period. Okay, so it wasn't a big deal, but obviously that's something that you need to account for as far as your holding expenses. So track record was huge. This is another one in Marshfield. So hopefully we're going to get these rented. We couldn't sell this property, so we're going to get it. It's already refinanced. So we already bought it and refinanced. So these people got track record for that particular property. However, we did have issues with this property. You won't believe this, but they broke into the property 3 times. It was just unbelievable. So we had to get, luckily, we were able to get the people. I mean, they were extremely sophisticated. Nothing that I've ever seen. Let me just tell you, they broke into the property, but they changed the locks. I mean, they removed the locks, they put new locks, so they had keys. And then when we found out, I mean, we got an alert, boom, the police got dispatched right away. And they said, no, we've been paying rent and we have a lease. So they presented the lease to the police. So with a lease, imagine, with a lease, there's nothing the police can do because They said, well, maybe when I was on the phone with the police and the squatter, I said, they're not the tenants. It's a fake lease. They said, well, maybe I mean, they were a victim of fraud themselves, but they were not. They're sophisticated squatters. Does that make sense? And they can go as far as, and these people did, as far as changing the utilities under the name. That makes it, that then they get the squatters' rights. So they're very sophisticated people there. So now there we had to put camera surveillance, talk to the neighbor. I mean, it was just a big challenge, but we were lucky that, in fact, Mark Goodman was able to get them out. So he just came to the property and told the squatters they had to leave. I mean, 2 times we had to remove their belongings, but it was just a big challenge. Okay, so this property, but hopefully, I mean, we've had a lot of interest in this, but we just need to stabilize these. But again, everyone already got track record from these. Now, this is one of the biggest one, right? Funding, deal makers funding. So we realize even if by the time you get the track record from us, what if there's a great deal that comes your way and you need to pull the trigger on it? Where do you get the money if you still don't have the track record or the funding line up? That's a big deal, right? So then we decided, okay, so let's use our funding from the deal makers to buy your property. So that's what we did in 2022. So this is a property that is in progress. It's been rehabbed. In fact, we're going to put this on the market, I believe, this weekend. So we have a JV agreement with Vipulsin. So we bought this for 90, rehab 20. We have a loan from Kiavi. So this is something that we're now doing, right? We're doing JVs with deal makers, utilizing our line of credit to buy the properties. And then these properties will, based on current market conditions, most likely we're going to hold these properties, right? Because the rental market has gone through the roof. Rents have gone extremely high. So let me give you an example. A three-bedroom, 2-bath in Dalton. Is this in Dalton? Yeah, in Dalton. As of 2022, Section 8 is paying 70, okay? No, in fact, I take it back. They pay $2,050. That's their voucher allowance for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. $2,050. As of January 1st, it's going to be $2,220, $2,220. I mean, the voucher amounts have gone through the roof. They're trying to keep up with the rental market. Okay, so I mean, the cash flow that we've seen in the rentals has been like never seen before. Okay, the least now that we're seeing is 300 to 400. That's the least. We've seen $1,000 in cash flow in these rental properties. And now I'm going to show you some examples. So this is one example of a property. So Vipulsi, we're going to give him their, is he here today? I don't think so. He was not able to come. The rookie of the year because he's done 3 deals. I mean, he recently joined the deal makers. He has this Dalton property, one in Calumet City and another one in Hazel Crest. Okay, he's doing really, really good. Okay, Vipulsin. Another one in Dalton. These we have with, Michelle Walker, right? So we're in the process. We should be finalizing the rehab this week. And then we will decide, we're going to run numbers, CMAs, to know what Michelle wants to do with this property. Okay, but this is another example, right? Where Michelle put the reserves and then we brought the loan, right? So the loan is from Kiavi and then we're assisting with the rehab. So the rehab could be flexible. Either you do the rehab or we can assist and step in and do the rehab for you. So it's completely optional, or it could be a combination. But the key is to complete the project in a timely manner with good quality. So this is in progress. So hopefully we'll get this stabilized. Now, what we're trying to do, if we're going to keep this as a rental, we don't want to rent it in December, right? We want to take advantage of the higher payout amounts starting in January 1st. So we're holding off, including all the rentals that we have, to write up leases as of January, okay? Because the rents are going up in January. So we have another one in Dalton with, Ron. run. So, and these houses, especially this one, was in very, very good shape. Okay. So now the tenant is paying 1,500, and we said, well, if you want to stay in the property, at least we need to bring up the rent to 2,000. Some tenants have said yes. In this particular case, this tenant said, no, I cannot afford to pay 2,000. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna offer this tenant perhaps the option to move into the other property in Dalton, right? Because when you work with a Section 8 tenant, the most they can give you is a 5% increase. It just doesn't make sense to me, because even though despite the fact that I'm on a month to month, we said we want to bring the rent up to current market rent over 2,000. Section 8 said no. You would need to pretty much move her out to a different place, and then you can bring it up to rental market. So we're going to offer her another rental so that we can bring the rent to the over 2,000, 2220. It's going to be the new market rent. Okay, so that's the option we're going to give that tenant. But this property now, after utilities are paid, the voucher should pay out close to $2,000, which, if you think about this, look at the purchase price. The rehab is really light on all these properties. I mean, the cash flow is going to be over 500 on every single one of these properties. And that's something that, as you can see, pay attention at the rehab. Any property that we've been buying in the last I would say 6 to 8 months, has to have a very light rehab. Okay, I'm talking about less than 50,000. But these we were very, very lucky in many deals that the rehabs were really, really minor. Okay, so flips, we were caught in the midst of the of the interest rate hikes. So this, we intended to sell like 9, 10 properties. We could only sell like 3. So profits 45,000. I mean, we were lucky that we were able to sell some of these properties, even though we bought them for like great prices, off-market properties. Rehab, other costs, we did cash for keys on this one. Total cost, sell price, so 15,000. So as you can see, even though we sold this property, it's a lot of work. And then we were just caught in the middle of the wave, right? To make 14,000. Technically, when you sell the property for 200,000, guess what? Technically, you need to make at least 20% return on the flip. So 20% of 200,000 is how much? 40,000. And if you only make 14,000, it is not worth it. It's just best to keep the property. If you're going to make 14,000, it just doesn't make sense. With the rental rates right now, it doesn't make sense. But we just had we had put it on the market, so we decided to sell it. But I was obviously disappointed. But that was the result of high interest rates, property prices adjusting, and then the labor. Look at this: the labor cost, the rehab on these properties. This is not. This is in the borderline between a middle or medium rehab and getting to sort of like a girl rehab, because we did a lot of exterior work on this property. So you've got to keep the rehabs below 50, 60,000 to make the numbers work. But yet, to tell you the truth, it's not worth it. That is why we're not doing any flips. This will be closing next week. So this is going to be a little bit better. The rehab was very minor. So this is what we're targeting: rehabs that are super, super minor. But again, you need to buy it for a really good price. But we struggle a lot. We did a cash for keys with the tenants. They just didn't want to move out, and they were paying rent. They were being good tenants, but the intention was not to rent it, to flip it. So finally, they moved out. We did cash for keys, and so we'll have some profit in this one. Now, this one, this one, I was blown away because I was thinking we were gonna make money, because look at this: purchase price 120, rehab was cosmetic, commissions, utilities. But on this one, I think we're gonna take a hit. We're gonna lose money on this one, because you look at the spread. There's not much spread based on the sell price. So all in, you are like 135, 135 plus carrying cost. right? So on this one, this is on the contract, and in fact, they inspected the property. I mean, the appraiser appraised the property last week. So this is scheduled to close at the end of towards the end of the month. But again, this one we're gonna take a hit. We're not gonna make any money. But this is a challenge. I was not happy, and I would not want to sell this property. But you know what the problem is? South Holland. Uh, Rental moratorium. You cannot rent this property. We spoke with the village, and in fact, we wanted to be creative and said, what if we do a rent to own? And they said, no, you cannot do rent to own because technically we're sort of selling the property. They said, no, you cannot do rent to own. And when we bought the property, they made a mistake and they sent us like a fine of 500. And they said, we're going to fine you 250 a day if you rent this property. So they are very, very strict on this. So we're just going to take a hit. I think we're going to need to bring maybe up to 5,000 or 7,000 to closing on this property. So we're taking a hit on this one. That is why, again, don't flip right now. I mean, we do have the experience, the resources, everything, yet whoa, we're struggling so much with finding the right buyers. Now rentals. So rentals, it was really, really good. So the cash flow, I'll show you some examples, and the equity, especially the equity build, right? So we're thinking long term. So let me just give you some examples. This property, look at the rehab on this one. This is an A neighborhood. The rehab just went over. The expected was about 60,000, but because of the exterior work, it went over. So this is cash flowing 400, okay? So I'm glad that I'm mentioning this. This is A minus, A plus neighborhood. So now the new strategy for 2023 is to focus on B minus, B plus, A minus markets. So we're gonna just be very conservative with more distressed markets, okay? Because the property values are gonna hold better in better neighborhoods. Rents are still gonna be super strong. Look at the rent, 28.75. And obviously the quality of the tenants are, it's very, very good. So you have no problem with collecting rent on these type of properties. And then the equity on this property. So this property appraised for 425, okay, with Civic. We did a refinance with Civic on this one. Another one in Dalton. This one has a lot of money in cash flow because it doesn't have a mortgage yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap into the equity of this property. Okay, as I said before, cash is king. So we want to have reserves to take on better deals in 2023. Okay, so the rent again, so they were paying 1450 in rent. We increased it as of December to 2,000. So it was a over $500 increase in rent. And we told the tenant, hey, listen, we're gonna increase the rent, but we're gonna make your house beautiful. So we did painting, a little bit of flooring, some minor repairs, garage. So we spent probably 10, 15,000. We did have issues with Section 8 not paying, so they put a hold, and finally they released the rents. But again, rents have gone through the roof. Another one in Dalton, and these are all properties done with deal makers. Okay, so the cash flow on these one, for instance, is pretty significant compared to other ones. About 950. This is already refinanced, and then people got track record on this one. Markham is the one that we did the track record. So the expected rent on this one is 1,800. The cash flow is going to be somewhere in the 700. Calumet City, this one was a little bit tighter. The numbers were tight, but still you have the cash flow. So the rehab, as you can see, the rehab was medium, 55,000. But look at this. Look at the purchase price of the properties and the cash flow, right? So you don't need to spend too much money to get a lot of cash. In fact, it's the opposite. The sweet spot is to buy properties below 200,000, below somewhere between 100 to 200,000. That's the sweet spot to maximize your cash flow. This is another one. I think this was brought by Keith, right? Keith and Lawrence to the group. Okay, we tried to, there was very little work on this property. We tried to sell it. We could not sell it. So we decided to rent it. So we were able to rent it super fast. Cash flow on this one is just okay. Okay, 275. Wholesale, look at this for 2022. 367,000 in wholesale transactions in 2022. So that's something that we're going to be focusing on heavily for 2023. So these are a few examples of properties we wholesale. In fact, we did some with deal makers. This was in Lansing. That goes to Annalie. She's not able to come in today. We did this with Michelle. So this was a hotel deal. We didn't do anything to the property. In fact, I was a little bit concerned on this property because that's when interest rates started to go up. So I was very concerned because the rehab on this property was going to be over 100,000. Even the GC told me, Hugo, please don't give me this project. So I started to get concerned on this one because I mean, we got it for a great deal, but it was just, again, in just difficult times. But luckily, we were able to move this property. So this was a hotel deal. We didn't do anything to this property. So this was with Michelle. These are Russell Walker's wholesale transactions in 2022. So this is one of the things that we also did in 2022. We built our brokerage. I'm a managing broker. Now we have 10 or 11 brokers join the brokerage. Russell is one of them. So every single transaction that he does goes through a brokerage. Every single deal that he does comes to the deal makers first. We have exclusivity on these deals. Okay, so we have a 24-hour window on every single one of these deals that he brings to the table. So, but it really caught my eye because I said, Russell, this is great. So we've been talking for the last 3 months, and I said, I want to dissect your system. Whatever you're doing, I want to dissect it and make it better. So we've been working for the last 3 months. Support has been sort of like the guinea pig. So we took his system, we dissected the system that he's using, and we're adding steroids to it, okay? Because we want you to mimic his success, okay? If he's doing it, what about you, right? Why don't we take even 10% of these? Can you imagine? Just 10% of these. Why is he the only one doing this type of volume, right? So that is why that really caught my eye. I mean, it's great that we have first-hand look at all these deals, but we all need to engage in wholesaling, especially in 2023, okay? So this is what, so the MVP goes to, obviously, to Russell. He's not here. He's going to be in town next week. So we're going to have an event. Russell is going to be in town. And then we want to get people on board on the new platform that we built to start doing wholesaling, and it's going to be led by Russell. Okay, so we want people to really take on wholesaling and rentals. Okay, stay away from flips unless obviously you're experienced. So that's Russell. So I'm going to show some of the deal makers deals. Mark is not in the room today. I have his diploma. So he's the pro investor with 20 rentals. Mark Goodman, also he's one of the top leasing agents. He's been helping us quite a lot. The second one goes to Sixto. He did 12 properties since he joined Dealmakers, amounting to 29 doors in 2022. So he was killing it in 2022. This is the list of transactions. I mean, these are all rentals. He's in the process of doing a lot of refinances right now. We did only one deal with him, but he did a lot of partnerships with other deal makers. Okay. So we have really seasoned investors in the group. Joan Williams, you know, she's been with us for a couple of years, but she started to become really active. Is Joan online? So say that again, Phil. Yeah, we don't have Joan online. So she did green. So she got a great deal on this one. She was going to use our funding, but last minute she decided to use hers. Um, and then she's in the process of doing this property. Okay, purchase 105, rehab 40,000, ARV 232. So we're going to give her the Investor of the Year reward to Joanne, because she became very active in 2022, and she's been great. She's been doing amazing. So Vipulsi, he's the Rookie of the Year in progress. This is the one that he's doing in Hazel Crest. And believe me, when he joined the group, he had no clue about real estate, nothing. Yet he's doing his third property. Okay, so this is one in Hazel Crest, and then he's got another one in Calumet City. Okay, he's using private funding, he's using our funding, he's using his own money as well to do deals. And then this is something big that you guys can come in. It's super important for you as investors owning rentals to do solar conversion. Okay, this is sort of like a no-brainer. So we're going really heavy on solar conversion. We've done 3, and they've installed panels in maybe this one, 2, January 3rd. They're doing this one. So we have like 3 installations already with panels, but they're not on yet. Okay, but 3 have been completed. So pretty much this is just a way to add value to the property and save money on electric bill. And this could be for your home or your investment properties. So we're going very aggressive on solar conversion. And the cool thing about this is that it's pretty much free to you. You're leasing out the equipment. Let me give you an example. For this property in Elmwood Park, we're paying $60 a month. That's it. So guess what? We don't pay that. The tenant pays for it, but they used to pay over 100 in electric. So they're happy. We're happy because we're adding value to the property. They're happy because they're paying less, and the property is just worth more. It's super attractive for either renters or buyers to have solar. And Elena has been very helpful with the roof assessments, and not only roof assessments, but anything related to new roofs. She did recently, right, Elena, this property? Would you like to? Yeah, she did pretty much everything that. Come on in. You can come over and just quickly tell it so that people.
Hello, Milena Rodriguez from the Dynamic Adjusting Firm. And basically, we help the homeowners and business owners with their claims. So we'll be able to replace roof siding and gutters. For example, the 5433 West 23rd on Cicero, they approve siding, gutters, and roof. So we already did the roof, and we're just waiting for the siding. So yeah, and they just paid the deductible, which was 2,500.
2,500. Yes.
So basically, it was a big project, and it was almost like 18,000 that the insurance approved. So this one, I remember you will send me the policy like a year ago. And he's like, Elena, can you revise if you will be able to do a claim? So we changed it to Liberty, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
He was able to get a roof replaced. So I will have my car, see if anyone is interested in doing a claim, but we'll work, and if you want to send me the policy, I'll revise it for you, and I'm here to help you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Elena. She's been amazing. She's done over 10 roofs for us through the claim insurance. So what we did is we gave all the insurance policies to Elena to review. So she said, yes, no, 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 no. So we did a switch over, and she's on top of what the best insurance companies are out there in the market that are paying for claims. So we switched over to her recommendation, and it's paid off because she's done so many roofs for us. We probably spent, I don't know, in deductibles maybe 25,000, but in exchange we've gotten roofs worth over $250,000 thanks to Elena. So thank you very much, Elena. Please make sure that you connect with her. She has also helped us with roof certifications, which are a requirement from many villages, okay, to pass inspections. So solar conversion. Are there any questions so far on everything that we've been talking about as far as 2023, what you guys need to focus on? Okay, so we're gonna quickly recap what we talked about. Based on the current circumstances, you have to engage in wholesaling, rentals, and stay away from flips. Okay, cash is king. So you've got a network. Negotiate with the sellers, because right now is going to be a really good time for investors. Hey, Rich. So I was just mentioning your name. So he's one of the few investors who holds all the pieces of the puzzle. Rich Joseph. I was saying that you have experience, reserves, time. So very difficult for somebody to hold all the pieces. So now next, as now that you know what we've done, that was the year-end review. So please give yourself, the deal makers, a big round of applause for all the transactions. And we're looking forward to John. So Airbnb, you just need to be cautious because, with the pandemic and before June of this year, people were buying second homes. They were doing a lot of Airbnb conversions. Right now, there's a surplus of Airbnbs. So that's something that you need to be careful, because also, the the interior of the property gets pretty damaged when you do the Airbnb. You have a lot of turnover in the property, but there's a lot of surplus right now of Airbnb, so you have to be careful. Um, that is why we're not considering Airbnbs right now for the short term. We just want to do long-term rentals and take advantage of the high rental market rates. Yeah. Anybody? Any other questions? Yes, Francis. Oh, the deal maker. So let me quickly show you. What would you do with that extra income, right? Extra time. So this is the cool thing, right? Of everything that we've been doing, what's really powerful is that it gives us the ability to do what's truly meaningful in our life, right? In my case, spend time with my family. That's number one. That's huge for me, right? Have that flexibility of time. So let me give you what we came up with, the blueprint for the strategy on 2023. Given the market conditions, what you've seen, what we've done with the deal makers. Um, so we have now the deal makers pro, right? So for those of you who are deal makers, that's awesome because you take advantage of funding, access to deals, partnerships, our power team. But now we're adding the wholesaling platform. That's the new addition. So the deal makers pro will have access to the wholesaling platform from Russell because we want to make sure that we are able to mimic what Russell is doing. That is why we spent the last 3 months working closely with him to bring that to every single one of you. So this is what the whole deal makers get today. They get access to off-market deals, MLS, and now what's new is the wholesaling platform. We have 11 brokers, so we help each other when it comes to MLS properties, right? So we have a dedicated broker in our team that flags potential deals, and we show the properties virtually and in person to the deal makers. So if you want to take on an MLS deal, it's available. We bought a couple of them from the MLS, but the focus is obviously on off market secure funding, right? So like Michelle, Vipulsin, they have taken advantage of our line of credit. We also have access to some private money lenders. Obviously, that is relationship based. So we just need to make sure that the deal makes sense. That's going to be very, very critical. And that we provide an exit strategy in a timely manner, right? Uh, so number three, track record. This is what I was telling you. It's so critical for newbies to have track records. So we're implementing when we buy properties. For those of you who want to be part of a track record, we want to make sure that you increase that to 3 to 5 properties under your belt in the last 24 months. So that if you want to go out there and secure funding, that's going to happen for you. Like for instance, Jessica, right? Jessica, you got like two. How many properties did you get now under your belt? Both track record and your own. Five. That's perfect, right? So and that was done in the last probably year, right? Or in the last how many months, Jessica? In the last year. So that was very, very amazing through track record and selling properties on her own. So big round of applause to Jessica. She's been doing amazing. But again, track record is so critical for investors. So we want to make sure that you build your track record. Again, 33 deal makers got track record on 4 properties. We'll continue to do that. Establish partnerships. We've done partnerships very extensively within the group for wholesaling, wholesaling, flips, but flips right now are on hold. For rentals, that's a little bit more challenging. We're trying to figure out the details on partnerships on rentals because it's a long-term commitment. Okay, so that's what we're trying to figure working on. But partnerships is so critical, so what we do is profile every single one of them. And we put them in 2 buckets: people with experience, people with money, so you know who to connect with. And we're handpicking, helping you do the partnerships because it's going to be so critical in 2023 to, to do partnerships and then collaborate with each other. So the the pieces that you're missing, if you're missing reserves, if you're missing experience, you do a partnership. Like for instance, we have a couple of deal makers, Steve, Ray, right? So they're willing to do partnerships. They now have reserves. Ron, they have has reserves, so they're willing to do partnerships with other people, right? Because you have to have reserves to do rentals. Wholesaling, you don't need any reserves. But so we have great people in the group with a lot of experience who are willing to do partnerships. So it's just a matter of connecting. That is why that's tip number 2 for 2023: connecting with people, adding value to their business. Um, Tip number 1 is going to be engage in rentals, and tip number 3 is engage in wholesaling. Exclusive access to our power team. So we're helping in rehabbing. Like right now with Michelle, we're working on a property, a Vipulsi, and so we're bringing our crews to do the work when needed. Okay, it's optional, but you have access to our power team. Um, and then obviously you'll be able to have more time, more joy, and make more money.